We're glad to have you back. Recent developments in Nigeria's oil and gas industry have set the stage for the entrance of new and local international players into the sector. The implementation of the PIA is expected to create a more competitive and attractive investment environment for local and international investors. But what is the current state of the industry? Let me talk to a partner, energy and chemical leader, a friend of the house, Mr. Olumide Esan. Good afternoon, Mr. Esan, and thank you for being on the program this afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tolu. It's my pleasure.
Like I said in my introduction, I think there's been a lot of development in the sector, executive orders, and all of that. So I think let's do an overview of what's been playing out in the oil and gas industry now specifically, and how well are we still doing to attract the expected investments?
Yeah, thanks, Tolu. Perhaps to start, let me say good afternoon to the viewers out there.
Thank you.
And, Nigeria is a work in progress, as we all know. The industry has been starved of investment in the last decade, thereabouts. So we have not been at the best that the industry could be. And that's why we've also seen investors divert their investments to other jurisdictions, even within Africa. They've gone to Angola, they've gone to the East Africa to put investment, even in southern part of Africa, Namibia and all that, the Orange Basin area. So the PIE was obviously a very good step in the right direction for us to kickstart the industry all over again. But as a number of us remarked at the time, it takes longer to get back to where we should be because we've lost years. But then the good news is at least we are back on that journey, and we see the implementation of the PIA in full swing now. Obviously, that hasn't exactly translated into an overnight success story for the industry, but at least we start to see the baby steps. And comforting is the fact that we see the level of commitment from government, which we've not seen in years. I think in your introduction, you did mention a series of executive orders which has been issued for the industry. These are a lot of attempts to address part of the issues that has made investments to leave Nigeria for other jurisdictions. We've always had insecurity in the Delta, which has been with us now for some time. This has made investment in our, onshore and shallow water, unattractive to investors, because every now and then you have vandalization, you have thefts, and regrettably, you have loss of lives of oil and gas personnel operating in that area. And also for the international oil companies, it's also more about, damages to their brands, So if every life lost, it's significant to them. It impacts their roads, the value of their brands outside Nigeria. So we saw this move towards, exiting the Niger Delta, and you've seen that either by way of asset divestment over the years, or more recently, share deals with companies wanting to sell the company and just move on to some other thing. So that's just one, sad aspect of the investment in oil and gas in Nigeria. But again, whilst struggling with all of this, came energy transition, which also forced companies to, revisit their portfolios and decide where they want to play. Obviously, the rule of the game is you want to play where you have the least carbon footprints, where you have the least greenhouse gas emissions. So natural review of your portfolios around the world will also help you to rank where you need to exit and where you need to invest. I do not think it's all sad story for Nigeria, because the same companies that are living, and also they still have they have some deep water commitments to Nigeria. They still want to do more in the deep water space if the economics and commercial terms are right. And government recognizes this. And there is, as you know, as part of that executive order, is also the need to make deep water oil and gas attractive for investors to invest in. So that's just so much of work. Increasingly, we are seeing that the Nigerian environment and regulators are also trying to do what they can to reverse what we've lost in the past. I was glad to read the fact that signature bonus is now being significantly cut to make it, globally competitive. I mean, from as high as $200 million in some instances, at the pre-bid conference of NUPRC, we see them talking about, signature bonus that could be as low as $10 million. Right now is a race to monetize what we have so we can get these dollars and use it to industrialize our economy. We need dollars badly, and the easiest way to have dollars in is in investment in type of transactions that has low, foreign currency risk. So if you bring money to set up a manufacturing plant in Nigeria, you will still be concerned that having brought in your dollars, how do you take your dollars out? How do you source the dollars? Are you exposed to foreign currency, fluctuations? Whereas if you bring your money in to develop an upstream asset in Nigeria, you know that ultimately you would have access to oil and gas, which you also will sell in dollars and take your money out. So the foreign currency risk is very limited, if at all, for the upstream. So easiest way for us to get dollars. Let's make the industry more attractive. Government need to ensure that besides the issue of insecurity in Niger Delta, they also address the issue of cost premium. As you will hear in the industry, it's probably 35 to 40% more expensive to operate in Nigeria. And what that means is the returns in terms of economic terms, net present value, it's lower in Nigeria on the project basis. So the good thing is part of the executive order seems to have addressed that, raising the contractual threshold to $10 million thereabout from 500,000, but also trying to streamline the local content input that needs to go into it, particularly in cases where we don't have the technical expertise. So just saying that there is still a long way to go, but we can see some baby steps in the right direction, Tolu.
Interesting one there, and thank you for that background and, highlighting all of this developments. But my next question will be a bit direct to the pricing of PMS. Yes, everyone is interested in the price of fuel and, of course, what is happening around town. Now, there is argument somewhere, economists and everyone has come up to say the price of PMS at the moment seems like there's an intervention by government. I don't want to use the word subsidy. I already mentioned it, subsidy. But there is this argument somewhere that there seems to be an intervention one way or the other, that naturally PMS fuel should be selling maybe for as much as maybe 1,000 naira or a bit less. Now, if that happens, this is what I want to understand as a layman. Does that affect the implementation of the Petroleum Industry Act? How does that also affect the pricing thing? Have we totally opened up this market if this is happening?
I mean, it's a good question. I think you should start, reference to the PIA. I think it's section 205, which, speaks to cost-reflective market prices for petroleum products. Well, I think your guess is as good as mine, but perhaps, let's do just a small, analysis here. There are about 160 liters or thereabouts in a barrel of crude oil. So if you assume that the entire barrel is processed into refined product, into PMA specifically, of course, bear in mind there will be some waste and all of that. So, but for simplicity, let's just assume that you process each barrel. So that if a barrel is sold for $80 today, at 1,500 to $1, that translates to about 120,000 naira. Okay, that translates about 120,000 naira to a barrel. If you then divide that by 160 liters, which is in the barrel, I think roughly that translates to about 750 naira. That is just back of the envelope calculation on the assumption of 160 liters in a barrel, and that the barrel is sold for $80, and that everything is you're able to convert everything. So if we even ignore refining cost, transportation cost, marketing cost, you already have a price of 750 naira to a liter. I think that the reality is that, you know, we will not be able to attract the right, set of investors if we don't completely deregulate in substance the downstream and the midstream sector of the petroleum industry. So um, companies must be able to invest and be able to sell at market prices that is cost reflective. So I don't believe that what we currently pay is cost reflective. I don't think so. And that is not limited to refined products, to even for power. I mean, we have situations where ordinarily, if you look at the way the power also work, particularly for the thermal energy part of it, um, look at that value chain. The gas supplier to the gencos, to the generating companies, as at May last year, it was like 460, or thereabouts naira to dollar that the gencos needed to pay for every scoop of gas, if they were to translate into naira. Now it's 1,005 naira thereabouts to dollar, meaning you have almost 300% of what it used to be. So that means ordinarily, if 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 gas was the only thing we consider in setting the tariff for power, it means that everything should have gone up by 200%, or it should be 300% of what it was before. So that there has to be intervention because we're running an economy that's and not a factory. In other words, we have human beings we're dealing with. Things are hard enough. I think that going and completely deregulating everything at this time, I mean, will at best result in a catastrophe because really, people are barely struggling to eat. So the reality is that we are challenged, and it's a vicious cycle. It's a chicken and the egg thing. Which one comes first? For example, we're talking about living wage now. I'm an advocate of a good living wage because I know that in theory, the higher the people earn, um, the more you're able to lift low income earner to medium income earner, the more you're able to develop your economy. Ask me how. For the elites, every marginal naira that they earn is largely spent on luxury products. Luxury products, such as them buying extra houses in the UK, in the US, or going on extended vacation in the Cayman Island or Caribbean islands. Whereas if that same marginal naira had been used, for example, for to increase, living wage of workers who are unable to afford, yam and egg now will be able to afford yam and egg. Those who are unable to afford local accommodation cannot afford accommodation and stop squatting with someone. What that does, what it means is that that same amount, if you just look at what I would put it now, a small economy where there are just workers in the private sector and shareholders of the companies they work for. Any money that is not paid out in form of wages, of course, then goes out to the shareholders ultimately as dividends. Let's assume these shareholders are the elite of the economy. You take this money, use it on luxury products outside the country which you don't manufacture, which doesn't add to our economy. Whereas if it's paid as living wage, you will see that these people, the poorest of the poor, they are then able to afford more. Majority of what they will be consuming will be goods and services produced in Nigeria. Okay, they can eat more yam, so the farmers can produce more. They can pay for children in private schools, so we can have more private schools. So they're spending that incremental earning on largely basics, which are also produced in Nigeria. Versus if it's gone out as dividend, for example, to luxurious shareholders, then they spend it on luxury. So economic power is also part of it, because if people then have more money, then they can put on electricity for longer. They perhaps can use air conditioners. So what it does is then more money in the pockets of the discos, which then gets to the gencos, and that cycle, it's what we need to keep the economy running. So it's sad where we are, but the good thing though is that both as government and the private sector, we all are committed, in one way or the other, to move Nigeria, forward, from where we were a couple of years ago. So that's the bit when you relate this whole cost-reflective, payment for PMS versus is it really affordable by Nigerians? Tolu?
Big question. But we can go on and on, particularly when it comes to the oil and gas industry. When I have you in the house, I know. But let's look at almost finally, and we talk about this almost every time now, the Dangote refinery. He said by July middle, we should expect petrol to come out of that refinery. That to me seems like very good news. But is that the game changer? And entirely, what is the outlook for, of course, in-country production?
Yeah, so certainly, Tolura, it's good news, and let's put it in context. What it means for a 650,000 barrels of oil capacity refinery in Nigeria, the single biggest plus is what we call energy security. We saw a bit of that come into play during the COVID crisis, where companies started invoking the domestic supply obligations in their respective laws. Even outside of the oil industry, the companies or countries now saying, whatever is produced in our country first is used before we can consider exporting. So we saw a bit of countries who were locking down refineries that, you can't export refined products until, first of all, our local economy is satisfied. So having a very massive refinery like that, like Dangote, and also having the NNPC ones complement it, will mean that we at least have energy security. We are unlikely to get to the point again where we can't find, refined products to buy. And I think that would also be a potential impact on pricing. And I said that with some level of prudence, because, the price of international price of barrel remains international price of barrel. Okay, so perhaps there will be some savings from transportation, because when you buy in Asia and you're shipping down, or Europe and you're shipping down to Nigeria, there is transportation cost, which adds to the landing cost of refined products. And I think that is a significant point to note, that we would expect at least that would have some impact. How material? I don't think it will be so material, but it would have impact. So if you look at the analysis we did earlier, if the cost of the liter itself is around 750 naira, then depending on the unit cost of refining by Dangote per liter, that then builds on the unit cost of the crude oil itself, and then marketing and distribution costs. So it certainly would help with regards to security, and also maybe bring down the cost. I do not think that it offers significant advantage from the point of view of dollars, because, as you know, Dangote too has external loans to service. So I've not seen the details of what the contracting will look like, but I imagine that Dangote also needs dollars. Let's not forget that even the raw material itself, which is the crude oil, as you know, some of which has been sourced from the US, will not have been paid for in naira, will be paid for in dollars. So it won't be out of expectation to see that maybe there is some level of pricing in dollars as well for the refined product from Dangote. So maybe there will be a little bit of ease on pressure on dollars or on naira. I don't see that disappearing away, because Dangote will still need dollars. But I think there are some commercial constructs that government could have to ensure that part is paid for in dollars, part is paid for in naira, just to ensure that there is some advantage for Nigeria in terms of impact on our current dollar pressure.
So much for your time on the show. We really do appreciate this. We don't take it for granted. Mr. Esan is the partner, energy and chemical leader with Deloitte Africa. Thank you. Do enjoy the rest of your day.
My pleasure. Thanks to you.